Hello students and welcome to English class for grade 9. Today I am going to explain lesson 1 from Beehive textbook, The Fun They Had. Now before I start the lesson, let me give you a brief introduction of it. The Fun They Had is a story written by Isaac Asimov, who was born on 2nd January 1920 in Russia. He was a biochemistry professor who pursued writing also. He was known for writing books on a wide variety of subjects like science fiction, astronomy, biology, maths, religion, etc. Now, this story takes us to the world of the future where computers will play a major role. This is a very light story. It is set in the future. It will make all of you love school. This story is regarding school life and how those children who do not go to school miss school. The setting of the story is in the future when perhaps there will be no schools, no books. Now, how do students will miss going to school? We go, meet friends and get a chance to study together and have a lot of fun. Before we read the lesson, let's discuss about the futuristic schools. As I have already told you that the story is set in the future when books and schools as we now know them will perhaps not exist. How will children study then? Let's discuss this through this diagram. Schools of the future could be in the form of learning through computers where you will be sitting in front of your computer and the entire content will be flashing on your screen. Next, we could have a pre-programmed robotic teacher who would be there to teach the students. Next, could be virtual classroom, which is not a real classroom as we have nowadays, but it would be one where learning is through computer software or the internet. Finally, we could have the moving e-text. That means you will not get the printed books to read, but you will be learning through the moving text on the computer screen. Now let's proceed further with a detailed explanation of the lesson. Margie even wrote about it that night in her diary. On the page headed 17th May 2157, she wrote, "Today, Tommy found a real book." Now here, you'll see that Margie is the main character of the story. She is a girl of 11 years of age. She writes a diary on the night of 17th May 2157. Right now, we are living in 2020. As told earlier, the story is set in the future and it is set in the year 2157. At that time, Margie writes an entry in her diary and she writes that Tommy found a real book and she is feeling so strange because in her times real books do not exist. Now, what does real book mean? Real book means the printed books like we are having nowadays. They only have e-books, the virtual books. That means the lessons which they are learning on their computer screens. So, books in the format of print on paper are extinct, and so Margie is astonished or surprised to see a real book. It was a very old book. My grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper. Now, Margie is reminded of her grandfather. He told her that his grandfather studied all the books that were printed on paper. So, this kind of book is historical or you can say ancient for them, something which they cannot believe, they can't even imagine. They turned the pages which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving, the way they were supposed to on a screen. Now, Maggie is talking about the book that Tommy had found. She says that the pages of the book had turned yellow and they had been crushed as it was very old. So, crinkly means with many folds or lines, something that is crushed. The children found it very funny to read the word which stood still. Now, what does it mean by that word that stood still? As the words were printed on the pages, they did not move. So, we know that in a printed book, the letters are not moving. In the same way, the real book, the letters were not moving, it was standing still. On the other hand, the books that Margie and Tommy read were online, that is, e-books. So, in the e-books, how it happens, the text keeps on moving as your screen moves, but it was different in the books printed on paper. And when they turned back to the page before, it had the same words on it that it had when they read it the first time. "Gee," said Tommy, "what a waste. When you are through with the book, you just throw it away. I guess our television screen must have had 1,000,000 books on it and it's good for plenty more. I wouldn't throw it away." Now, Tommy showed his dislike for the printed book. He said that it was a waste because he felt that whenever you complete reading a book, you have to throw it away. You cannot have same different story written on the same book. On the contrary, he felt that the computer screen was very good because the same screen had shown him many books and still he could read many more on it. He would not have to throw that screen away when once he had read a particular story. Now, same with mine, said Margie. She was 11 and hadn't seen as many telebooks as Tommy had. He was 13. Now, Margie agreed with Tommy's opinion. Margie was 11 years of age and she has not read as many books as Tommy had because Tommy was older to Margie. He was 13 years of age. She said, "Where did you find it?" Now Margie asked Tommy that where had he found the printed book, the real book. "In my house," he pointed without looking because he was busy reading, "in the attic." Now Tommy replied to Margie that he found the printed book in the storeroom of his house. Now attic means a space just below the roof which is used as a storeroom. So he said that he had found that book in the storeroom of his house and he was so busy reading the book that he did not remove his glance from the book. "What's it about?" Margie asked that what the book was about. Then Tommy replied that the book was about school, about going to school and about the life at school. Margie was scornful. "What's there to write about school? I hate school." Now scornful means showing you think something is worthless, contemptuous. Now Margie hated the word school and so she said that what was there to write about it, that an entire book had been written about school. Margie always hated school, but now she hated it more than ever. The mechanical teacher had been giving her test after test in geography, and she had been doing worse and worse until her mother had shaken her head sorrowfully and sent for the county inspector. What is Margie's school? Margie's school is a mechanical teacher. Now, a mechanical teacher means a machine which teaches you. It's a robot. and you do not go to school as we are all going. Now, why did Margie hate school? Margie's school was a virtual classroom. I have already explained virtual classroom means a classroom which is not a real classroom. You are sitting in front of the computer and you are guided and taught by the robotic teacher. It was not a real school like we have today. So in the future, we are thinking that the schools will be virtual classrooms. There will be machines that will be teaching the children. Margie hated this machine because it was giving her so many tests in geography which were very difficult for her and she was performing very badly. Finally, her mother thought that there was something wrong with the machine and so she had called the county inspector to check it and give a solution to the problem. The inspector had smiled after he was finished and patted Margie's head. He said to her mother, "It's not the little girl's fault, Mrs. Jones. I think the geography sector was geared a little too quick." So now the county inspector said to Margie's mother that she was getting bad marks in geography because the machine was not working properly. It was geared to a higher level. Now geared means adjusted to a particular standard or level. Those things happen sometimes. I have slowed it up to an average 10 years level. He further said that sometimes machines malfunctioned and that is what had happened. He had slowed it down and set it to the pace of a learner of 10 years age. Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory. And he patted Margie's head again. He said that Margie was learning at a good speed. He again patted Margie's head in order to cheer her up. Margie was disappointed. She had been hoping they would take the teacher away altogether. But now Margie was sad because she did not want to learn. She did not want to study from this machine. And she wanted that the inspector should take it away. They had once taken Tommy's teacher away for nearly a month because the history sector had blanked out completely. Blanked out means it has been erased. Now Margie is reminded of the time when Tommy's mechanical teacher had been taken away for repair for almost 1 month and he was enjoying his time as he didn't have any teacher then. It had been taken away because the history sector, the portion of the machine that taught the history subject had been wiped out, that it has completely gone blank. So the mechanical teacher did not have any memory of it and had to be taken away for repair. So it took almost a month to repair. So she said to Tommy, "Why would anyone write about school?" Tommy looked at her with very superior eyes because it's not our kind of school, stupid. This is the old kind of school that they had hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Now we know the reason for Margie's dislike for school. So she asked Tommy that why would anyone write about school? That means there's anything interesting about the school. Tommy was looking at Margie with the superior eyes because he knew something that Margie was not aware of. He said that Margie was silly because she did not know that many years ago the school was not the kind they had. He added loftily, pronouncing the word carefully, "centuries ago." Margie was hurt. "Well, I don't know what kind of school they had all that time ago." She read the book over his shoulder for a while, then said, "Anyway, they had a teacher." Now Tommy wanted to stress on the time period and said that centuries ago, the school were not like the one they had. Now Margie was hurt at Tommy's behavior and she said that she did not know what kind of schools they had centuries ago. But she was curious and imagined a group of children being taught by a human teacher. She looked over Tommy's shoulder, trying to read the book, and said that perhaps they had a teacher. Sure, they had a teacher. Sure, they had a teacher, but it wasn't a regular teacher. It was a man. A man? How could a man be a teacher? Now, Tommy is referring to the machine teacher as a regular teacher here. Regular means normal or the usual kind, and because that is what they had used to. That is, the teacher they had a machine. He said that it wasn't the machine, it was a man, a human being who used to taught them. Maggie could not believe that a man was a teacher because she had always seen a machine doing that work. Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions. Now Tommy tells that the man who taught the class discussed many things with the students, gave them homework and then asked them different questions based on it, just like the mechanical teacher did. A man isn't smart enough. Now Maggie said that a man teacher is not as smart or intelligent as the machine teacher. Sure, he is. My father knows as much as my teacher. Tommy asked Maggie not to underestimate the human teacher. He said that he is as knowledgeable as the machine. He compares the machine to his father and says that his father knows as much as his machine teacher. He knows almost as much, I betcha. Betcha means bet you for something, and that means I'm sure. Tommy could bet on it that the human teacher knew as much as the mechanical teacher did. So they were betting on this thing. Margie wasn't prepared to dispute that. She said, I wouldn't want a strange man in my house to teach me. Margie did not want to discuss this further, and she added that she did not want a strange man, a human teacher, to come to her house to teach her. Now Tommy screamed with laughter. You don't know much, Margie. The teacher didn't live in the house. They had a special building and all the kids went there. Now Tommy found it very funny when Margie said that she did not want a strange man to come to her house to teach her. He said that teachers didn't come to the students' house to teach them. They had a special building, a school, and the students went to the school to study. And all the kids learned the same thing. Sure, if they were the same age. Margie further asked him she was quite astonished, and she asked, did all the children learn the same thing? Then Tommy replied, yes, all the children of the same age studied the same thing. But my mother says a teacher has to be adjusted to fit the mind of each boy and girl it teaches, and that each kid has to be taught differently. Margie refers to a machine teacher, and she says that her mother told her that the machine had to be tuned to the level of each boy or a girl who was studying from it. So each child had to be taught separately depending on their caliber and their age. Just the same, they didn't do it that way then. If you don't like it, you don't have to read the book. Now Tommy replied that in the past, they did not do it that way. He got irritated at Margie and said that she need not read the book. I didn't say I didn't like it, Margie said quickly. She wanted to read about those funny schools. Now Margie was getting quite interested in the book. She was curious to know what kind of schools were there in the past. And she wanted to know what kind of school there were in the past, as she felt that they were having a lot of fun then. They weren't even half finished when Margie's mother called. Margie, school. Margie had read just half of the book when her mother called her, as it was time for her to attend her virtual school. Margie looked at, not yet, Mama. Margie's school was in the next room next to her bedroom. She said to her mother that not yet, she did not want to go to school right at this moment. Now, said Mrs. Jones, and it's probably time for Tommy too. Margie's mother said to Tommy that it was time for him also to go to attend his school. Margie said to Tommy, can I read the book some more with you after school? Margie was so interested in reading the book that she asked Tommy if she could read the book with him after the school is over.
Maybe, he said nonchalantly. He walked away whistling, the dusty old book tucked beneath his arm. Now, nonchalantly means not showing much interest or enthusiasm, means behaving in a careless way. Now, Tommy tried to ignore Maggie and said that maybe she could read it afterward. He walked away whistling, the dusty old book tucked beneath his arm. Tommy was feeling very great because Maggie was interested in reading the book. He placed the book under his arm and he went off to his home. Maggie went into the schoolroom. It was right next to her bedroom, and the mechanical teacher was on and waiting for her. Margie also reached her school. It was a room next to her bedroom. It was actually a virtual classroom, and there was a machine teacher for Margie. It was on and it was waiting for her to begin the lesson. It was always on at the same time every day except Saturday and Sunday, because her mother said little girls learn better if they learned at regular hours. Margie studied all the days except Saturdays and Sunday, and at the same time and from this mechanical teacher. Margie's mother was very particular about this thing. She had told Margie that she would learn better if she would study every day and at the same time. The screen was lit up and it said, "Today's arithmetic lesson is on the addition of proper fractions. Please insert yesterday's homework in the proper slot." Now Margie sat in front of the machine, which was quite similar to a computer, and the machine was turned on. It said that the lesson of the day was in arithmetic, and the topic which she was supposed to read was addition of proper fractions. Further, it instructed Margie to insert the homework of the previous day in the slot. Margie did so with a sigh. Margie's life is also very mechanical, just like a machine. There is no fun in her classroom. It was very dull and boring, just like a machine. Though she regret being a part of this thing. She was thinking about the old school they had when her grandfather's grandfather was a little boy. Now Margie is thinking of the story told to her by her grandfather. Her grandfather told her that his grandfather used to go to school when he was a little boy. As Margie is bored with this machine, she is reminded of that life. All the kids from the whole neighborhood came, laughing and shouting in the schoolyard, sitting together in the schoolroom, going home together at the end of the day. Now, this is the life that you all are living at present. But for the future kids, it will be just a memory of the past. For them, it will be a history because their life will be very different. They will study from machine, the robotic teachers. When Margie comes to know that in the past, children used to go to school, they sat together, they laughed and shouted in the schoolyard, she gets curious about it and wants to go to school. Now, the author wants us to realize the importance of schools in our life. Children sometimes get bored and fed up of going to school. But if you don't have a school, just imagine, you won't get to meet friends. Your life will be very dull and boring. Don't you think so? They learned the same things so they could help one another with the homework and talk about it. And now Margie feels that school is so much fun. Children get together, they study in a fun way, they get the same homework and they can discuss it, take help and talk about it also. So, all the students become friends and study in a fun way. And the teachers were people. She found it very strange that the teachers were not machine, but they were human beings who used to teach the students. The mechanical teacher was flashing on the screen when we add fractions 1 by 2 and 1 by 4.
As Maggie had inserted her homework, the machine started with the lesson. There was no pause, no time for fun, no time for chatting, and no time for interacting with friends. Maggie was thinking about how the kids must have loved it in the old days. She was thinking about the fun they had. Now, the author ends the story with the title of the chapter, The Fun They Had, means the fun the students had when they went to real schools. Maggie is just thinking about the kids of the past who went to school and enjoyed studies. Now just have a quick look at the difference between the present school and the future school. The basic difference between the present and the future school are as follows. First one is related to materials. In a present school, there are real books printed on papers, they're yellow and crinkly, whereas in the future school, telebooks, e-books will be there on the screen, they can be changed. Next is teachers. Present school, the teachers are a real man or a woman. They know the communication skills, their emotionals, and in future school, robotic or mechanical teacher is there. They give test after test. No communication is there. They're large, cold, black, and ugly. Classrooms in the present school, teaching is done in a building. Many students are taught the same thing, whereas in future school, it's in the student's own house. Needless to leave home, each kid could be taught differently. The classes are always on at the same time every day. Last but not the least, homework and test. In the present school, exams, tests, paper writing, essay writings are done, whereas in future school, they just write them out in a computer by pressing the keys and then put them on the slot. Thank you. Hope you all had fun learning through this video.